and roundtable discussions, and we're going to do that here too, but I thought maybe guiding us along through some series of topics that you've all mentioned would be helpful so we can stay on track. How many of you have taken on funding from an outside resource? Just by a show of hands. I'll talk loud. They told me not to use the microphone because Joe will come beat me up. You don't know about Joe, he would. So how many of you again have taken on funding from outside? Do you mind sharing what that looked like?
We're a nonprofit.
Oh, okay. So nonprofit. How many of you are not-for-profits and you've taken on funding from the outside? So you're a for-profit organization. What did that look like for you?
It looked like family money. It essentially was $10,000, and that was seed capital, and that got us all set up and started.
Nice. Anybody else?
A benefactor, just like what we're doing. He structured it as an investment, but as a loan actually, and he said never expects any repayment. He said I can just tear up the papers.
Didn't expect any repayment. We might call him an angel, but he's probably not. Anyone else?
Also a benefactor and the foundation at
Nice. Well, these are some of the most common types of investments that you can get. So in angel, do you guys know what an angel is? So typically, if you are a business with less than $500,000 in revenue, then an angel is probably going to be the type of investor you want to look for in your market. In working with them, what you need to be aware of is they typically only have $25,000 to $100,000 to invest in your company. They're going to want to see from the beginning of time all of your books, 5-year projections, and in addition to cash, they actually want to sit on your board. And they probably want to control your board too. So even when you begin talking with an angel, they're going to ask for control of your company. A venture capitalist, that's typically $1 to $3 million in investment. Same kind of relationship, they're going to run your board, they're probably going to run your company too. So they're going to look at more than a 60% equity share in your company in addition to the debt being repaid. Doesn't sound so good? A banker, typically with banks right now, like what we're seeing in Birmingham, there's not a lot of capital available. So if you get something from a bank, if you've been in business for a few years and you can show more than $500,000 in revenue in all of your financials, you might get a loan. Maybe, you're more likely going to get a line of credit that's personally guaranteed that you'll need to pay back. And you might even have to mortgage your house for that. Your dad and your buddy, friends and family investors, those are the people who probably are not going to want to see your 5-year projections, all of your financials, you know, anything that you've done in the past. But you've got to be really careful about that because I've heard some friends of mine who work in our entrepreneurial our incubator in Birmingham have taken on friends and family investment and they've lost friends and family as a result of it because they didn't understand. Their uncle said, oh, you're not going to have to wait to pay me back. And then maybe uncle's cash situation changed and uncle's knocking on the door like, hey, I need my money back and you can't pay it back. Then you risk losing that family member, so that's not so great. Does anyone have anything else to share on type of investment? No? Is it surprising to you that it's hard to get money? No? It's really hard to get cash. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the next topic. So if they will give you money, they're going to ask you for all of those financial documents, and then what you need to keep in mind too is they want to give you money for a reason. So if they're friends and family, they wanted to give you money because they believed in you and they want to help your business, or maybe they saw at some point there's some real value in civic engagement in the community. They may have invested for that reason. Everyone else, anyone investing for financial gain, you need to be aware of that because they're looking at business multiples. And we'll talk about some of those multiples that they're looking at. So what's it worth to them, which is why they're going to want to see that 5-year projection. And then typically what you need to keep in mind too, if they're looking at a 5-year projection for your company, companies are valued differently based on whether or not they're service businesses or if they're scalable businesses. I think pretty much everybody in this room has a service business. I really wanted to have a scalable business when I started out because those typically go for 30 times multiples, so 30 times profit. I'm like, well, that's worth a ton of money. Like, my business is worth millions. I should be able to get all of this money, this infusion of cash, so that I can hire more sales reps. But they didn't look at it that way. When they look at you as a service-based business, it's kind of like looking at you like a hair salon. Well, you should be able to go out and do more haircuts, aka you should be able to go out and sell more ads so you can fund your own business. And that's one of the reasons, that sort of the tough realities about why it's so hard to get cash. But Zappos is a really great exception, and I'll say, if you can build this into your business strategy, if you can build this into your culture, Zappos sold for a ton of money. They just sell shoes online. Technically, they probably would have been viewed as a service business, but their sales culture was so strong that they were worth acquiring. So if you can do that, if you can look at, beyond just being a news operation, we're going to have a kick-ass digital sales force. And if we have a kick-ass digital sales force, we're worth something, because someone will want to acquire us at some point in the future if we have that kind of value. Because maybe it's beyond banner ads at that point. Maybe you say, these guys, if we can teach them to sell and we can build up a really strong sales force, then we can go in and they can sell products that are outside our existing line right now. So definitely remember Zappos. And if you want to trade at higher multiples, try to build something like that into your company, something that's of value above and beyond your content. How many of you are formed as an LLC? Sole proprietor? You don't have a business formation yet? Anybody? You're a sole proprietor? Okay. S corporation? Nobody's an S? Yay, so good. So the dangers, obviously, of a sole proprietorship are if you get sued, they can go after you personally. I mean, you know, that kind of thing. For an LLC, what's so brilliant about that is, and especially if you're talking to an investor, they like LLCs because they can negotiate with you on an LLC. They can say, I'll give you $50,000 investment in your company in exchange for all of these terms. I want 20%. You have to pay it back. It's a debt and an equity. But I want to be able to take your business's loss and write it off. So this is sort of a sweet spot if you're looking for an investor, let's say October, November, December. There are investors in town that are looking for businesses to write off as a loss. So if you're losing money, or if you can lose some money by hiring some people and taking on an infusion of cash, it's kind of an interesting way to start a conversation with an angel or a VC investor that might be in your community. And you can just find them by Googling them online, or if you have a local business incubator or a local chamber of commerce, call and talk to them and find out how you can get in touch with them. So you can determine, if you bring on any kind of investor with an LLC, what percentage of loss they get to write off, what percentage of profit they get to write off, and what percentage you get to write off, and that's hugely valuable. With an S corporation, I'm just going to mention this in case any of you ever decide to, like, you know, when you go through and you file your business license and you actually form. An S corp, I see them most typically when folks go to their accountant or their lawyer who maybe had a business license for a while, and they had an S corp because LLCs aren't very old, and they'll just form a new company as an S corporation. We have some of those in our building in our incubator. The problem with an S corporation, it pretty much functions like an LLC in terms of pass-through losses, few differences there, but with an S corp, you have to have quarterly meetings and you have to take minutes. And the bulk of people who have S corporations don't do that right now. So they're sort of violating the law. So be really careful if you decide to move that over to an S corporation. But you're well positioned having LLCs when you go and talk to an investor, because that gives you a lot of different points that you can negotiate on. Got any question on an LLC? Why did you guys file LLCs instead of S corps? Did you go through a process when you were working with an attorney or an accountant where you talked about the benefits of having an LLC if you take on investment? Liz?
I had two companies, and I sold one company in a year ago this month, actually, and it was an S corp, and I had it for 10 years, and we never had meetings. And no one ever emphasized, my attorney, my accountant, no one ever said you should be having meetings. What I did like about the S corp was the bare minimum, the minimum that you had to pay in taxes every year, and the LLC does not come with
Yeah.
business setup, so I didn't feel that my food blog needed all of that, so we looked at the others.
Other restriction. And, if you ever get into a point that you're like, okay, listen, we've built up this amazing digital sales force, my company's worth a ton of money, I now want to roll it into a corporation so we can take on different types of investors, then you can roll either one of these over into a corporation really easily. So, and we're going to start talking about sort of numbers and the financial documents you need in just a second, but this is a really good business book because there's no way that we're going to be able to go through and learn how to do a balance sheet today. So I'm going to show you some examples and some resources that you can use to complete your own balance sheet. But the Wall Street Journal Complete Small Business Guide, I would also say if you have a college or university in your community, those MBA students have projects that they have to complete every single semester. So if you don't have your financials lined out, if you're not forecasting on a quarterly basis, if you're not completing your books and closing them on a monthly basis, it would be really helpful to call the school and say, do you have anyone who can come and work with us as their senior project and help us build out a financial structure? So definitely give somebody a call if you're not doing that already, because if you ever want to take on investment, you will absolutely have to have these numbers unless it's a friends or family. How many of you have a business plan? You're shrinking. How many of you have a business plan? Do you actually use your business plan? How's it evolving? Yeah. When's the last time you updated yours? Who else has a business plan? Yeah. What kind of goals do you have in your business plan? Of those of you who have a business plan, have you ever shown it to a potential funder before? No? What's interesting about them, and I have a 30-page business plan that it's all flowery and it's got lots of power words in it, like building community and connecting. And if you show it to a funder, they're going to flip to the back pages where the financials are. So really, really important when you're looking at what kind of time you want to allocate, if you're considering bringing funding on, to allocate more time toward learning your financials, getting all that information together, and then really focusing on your business plan kind of as a secondary piece. Your numbers do need to roll up, but don't get too caught up in the language that you have in your business plan until after you've mastered your financials, because they kind of don't care. I met with maybe 15 potential investors. I liked one of them. I didn't like the other 14 because the first one that you meet with who goes through and sort of puts you through the meat grinder, and I had 5-year revenue projections. I had my bank statements because they want to look at those. I had everything. And they sat down and they grilled me on every single piece of that, and you just feel sort of wasted when you leave. You're like, this is so bad. But they didn't pay a lot of attention to the business plan. Still important, financials way more important than business plan. All right, so financial statements. How many of you are putting out regular monthly financial statements and closing your books? Yeah.
Are you going to talk about business plans?
We can go through and talk in more detail about them in a minute. Yeah, sure. Yeah, do you need help building one?
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems like the focus of this is on getting funding, and so I just
Yeah.
I didn't get that from the description.
Okay, we're past the funding part, so we'll go focus on the business plan in a second. All these pieces will sort of roll up to your overall business plan too. You have to have them in there. So does anyone close out on a monthly basis? Besides Rusty, you close out quarterly. How are you managing your cash right now? What cash? Yeah. Do you just check your checking account and see if you have money in there? Like what? That's what you do? Yeah? Is that pretty? I'm just kidding. Yeah. It's one cash manager strategy. Yeah. Is that what you guys are doing primarily though? You just sort of keep up with here's the money that I'm taking in, here's the money that I'm sending out. You do? That's it?
We have a profit and loss statement that we produce every 2 months, so we know where we are. We also have check the financial statements.
Okay.
We have
You do? Okay. Does anyone else have a bookkeeper? You do? Quarterly basis, you close out your books. Okay. All right. Well, so the different statements that you really need, like, I think that would stress me out managing from my checkbook. I'm not sure if it's stressful for you guys. I know that you've got a lot on your plate. But if you go through and you get a process in place for this, it's just changing a habit. Go through, get a process in place. It will sort of change your life in the way that you look at your business. It really will. Because then you're going to be paying attention to, in Q2, we want to go through and do a site upgrade rebuild. Go ahead and forecast out your expense for that, and you're going to see the quarter before that you've got it coming up and that you're going to need to sell more. It sort of keeps you on track for everything you want to have happen in your business. So not just from a funding perspective, but just for you and your own peace of mind. These are really good documents to have, and they don't take a lot of time. Lisa Williams spoke here last year, and she said, really looking at your schedule and day parting out. So for me, that's on Monday morning for 2.5 hours. Every Monday morning, I'm with my financials. I'm not answering the phone. I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not taking any appointments. I go in before my staff gets there, and I do nothing but spend time looking at our financial forecast and what's going to happen for that week. So different financial statements that you're going to need. Cash flow. You have a process for your cash flow management right now, but there's a better process in place that you can use, and I'll show you an example of that in a moment. Cash flow is just really looking at money coming in and out of your company. Investors are going to want it, but you need it too. A balance sheet will tell you at any given point in time on any day exactly what's happening in your business. So how much money you've got coming in, coming out, where you are. Your income statement, and you mentioned the P&L, profit and loss, that's what an income statement is. That's something that you're going to want to close out on a monthly basis. So close everything out that happened for that particular month. And then equity statements, those are really going to be important just if you've taken on a funder, because they're going to want to see some sort of return on their investment. If you're an LLC, you might sell membership certificates. That's what equity is. You guys heard the statement, cash is king? It is, isn't it? I have a rep who went out and closed a $25,000 deal, and I'm like irking to get the money into the business. Until you have the cash, it doesn't matter what you've gone out and closed, because you need that for your operation. So always remember, cash is king, always. All right, so cash flow statement. The cash flow statement is going to measure your operating activities, your investing activities, and your financing activities. So if you have any debt that you need to service, it will show up on your cash flow statement, and then any money coming in and out of your company. And this is what a cash flow statement looks like. If you Google cash flow statement, you can find one and you can copy it. But like, again, I would say if you're gonna go through and get all your financials together, call your local college or university and see if they can send somebody over to help you, or call your Chamber of Commerce. They may have a resource that you can use for free. He will walk you through this entire process for building out a cash flow statement. So typically you want both a cash flow statement listing your actual cash, and you want something forecasting out your cash for the year as well. Any questions on cash flow statement? No?
Do you have an accountant
Huh?
that does this for you, or do you?
I do it.
Okay.
I do it, but one of the original investors that I spoke with, the one that I really, really liked, because we went out and drank craft brew beer together. It's important when you're looking for an investor, make sure it's somebody you actually want to hang out with, that you want to be around. Because in searching for cash, the first person that we talked to, and we haven't taken on investment yet, but when we're ready, like he's queued up and he's ready to go, and I trust him implicitly with everything. He even attends our staff meetings now. The first person that we talked to was a really wealthy man who did not understand online media, and he brought his 21-year-old daughter-in-law to our meeting because he wanted her to be able to run the company at some point. So of course, his proposal was, for $500,000 investment, I want 70% ownership of your company. And the 21-year-old's already there, so I'm like, you know, if I take that next week, I could be out. Because with that level of ownership, he owns over half of my company, then he could fire me. I would be gone, and the 21-year-old would be running things. So yeah, I do them on my own, but the potential investor, Philip, that we talked to, he and I meet on a quarterly basis, and we actually go through these. And it's really important too, I think, that you've got some accountability in place, that you have somebody to answer to, because if you're not going through and you're not building out all these statements and whatnot now, the first time you get busy, this is what you'll quit doing.
Do you use QuickBooks, or is it just, yeah?
And I'll be honest, some people really like QuickBooks. I don't. Not the online version of QuickBooks. I bought the online version. I built out all of our accounts. I used it for about a month, and I was just really frustrated with it. I like Excel, for me.
You just manually put this in?
Yep. I put all of...
Based on your bank statements?
Yep. I just go through and I put these in based on my statements, and I'll do it every Monday morning. I'll go through and update all my financials. But if you're going to get QuickBooks too, you want to look at the differences between the two versions of QuickBooks. One of them is the online version. It doesn't do much more than Microsoft Excel does. And it's a little bit trickier to use. If you want to go sort of the full banana, meaning if you ever want to work with an accountant in the future, then they're probably going to want you to use QuickBooks because that's what they use. Look at the full software installation because it actually has some forecasting tools in there that would be useful for you. But the online version doesn't. And they're about the same price too for each one. All right. The balance sheet. The reason why a potential investor would want a balance sheet is because your stockholder equity is going to show up on that, which if they're looking at investing in your company, that's going to be how they get their money back from you. The reason why you want a balance sheet is it's going to show you at any given point in time on any day exactly what's happening with your business, how much money you have, and then how much money you have going out, along with any of your debt that you need to service to. So for me, this is helpful. We don't have any debt, but if I had a number there that had like $30,000 in debt, then, and I looked at that on Monday morning, I'm probably not going to take Friday afternoon off. I'm probably going to go on sales calls because you've got debt to service. And then if you have any assets, those are going to show up too, which is important for an investor. And then the income statement. And this is just a sample of an income statement. If you Google income statement online, you can get a free format to use for this. You can download the document if you want to use it in Excel. So When you work or talk with an investor or anyone who might give you money, they're going to want your income statement since the beginning of your business. So if you don't have that now and you've been open for a couple of years, like start now and then go back and get all of the rest of them if you're going to talk with anybody. Now, if you just use it for you personally, then close this out every single month. This is also called your profit and loss. And it's going to show you how you're actually performing. If you have an LLC and you're selling membership certificates, do y'all know that with an LLC you can sell stock in your company? LLCs have a form of stock called membership certificates, so you can actually use that for fundraising if you want to. You can sell shares of that, and your earnings per share would show up on your P&L as well. Yeah. All right, deadlines. And then I put deadlines in place. So by the 7th day of the month, the previous month has to be completely closed out. I don't let it go past that. And so when I close the month out, that's going to be my income statement is closed out. So my monthly books. I know everything that happened for one particular month. Because if you're not doing that and you're letting things bleed over into a 2 or 3 month period, you probably don't know what's going on with your business, how much money you have coming in and out. So definitely go in and set some pretty firm deadlines for yourself and mark off some time so that you complete those every single month. Does anyone have deadlines in place now? Nobody? Do you wake up at like 6:30 in the morning and check your online banking account like, woo, we're good? Is that it? I have a friend who does that. It's like, it's working fine.
If someone misses your deadline, do you have your account receivable person who handle it yourself?
Well, and I'm going to talk about the actual collections process too and how you set deadlines around that. But these are the deadlines that we have in place just for monthly closings. So Philip, my craft brew drinking friend, who I send him resources and whatnot, if I don't send him a copy of my financials on the 8th day of the month, and then he kind of looks over them for me, then he will call and yell and curse at me. Yeah. So get somebody who'll call and yell at you if you don't complete them, because they really are important. And having somebody to sit down and go through your income statement with at the end of the month makes you accountable for all of your sales activities for the previous month. So if you went through and you set goals, and it's kind of like if you put all of Eleanor's stuff in place and you've got your $436,000 to count, it's a better conversation to sit down and have with somebody about your business. Obviously, that's more fun. It's not fun to sit down and have a conversation when you're at a loss, but you need to be able to do that every single month because it's a reality check. You know, we're like, okay, we've had 3 months of losses, and I'm sitting down and I'm talking with somebody about 3 months of losses. What they're going to say is, what are you going to do to change that? Well, we're going to make 200 more sales calls this month, and we're going to close X amount of business this month because we have to.
Just so I can put this in perspective for myself, can you just maybe describe what your situation is? Do you have like a sales team? Do you have like what your structure is?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I feel like I just need to crawl out.
Yeah. No. And that's why I say, like, call the university and get you a person. You need a peep. So just to help you build it out, because if you have it all built out, then it's easy to understand because it's applicable to your business. We have a hyperlocal news site, and then we have a shopping site for local independent businesses married together. We have 225 local independent business customers. About 20% of those we invoice on a monthly basis. That's a lot of people. So collections are huge for us, and we have to make sure all of that money is coming in because we have money going out. So of my staff, it's me, and then I handle all of this stuff in addition to editorial meetings for the content strategy, taking out the trash, sales training, going on to key account calls, and then keeping everybody kind of motivated and up and running. So there are 5 of us total on my whole team. My sales reps are, one is on a base salary plus commission. The rest of them are independent contractors, commission only. Editor is full-time, And then the other writers are just paid on a per story basis, so that they're independent contractors, freelance.
Can you say what you pay your freelancers? Or is there a range?
Yeah, so for the independent contractor sales reps, they get 25% commission off of any deal they closed based on when the payment comes in. So if they sell an annual deal and the annual check comes in, when the check comes in, that's when the payout occurs, like that Friday. When you start paying people like that and you've got multiple people to pay, that's why you need all this stuff to keep up with, because I would imagine it would be really stressful to try to sit there and remember everything. Did I pay that person? Let me go back and look at my book. If you've got these financials, you're going to know it anyway. For our writers, we pay them a base salary, or a base story fee based on their level of experience. So if you are a niche food writer who's been published on Huffington Post and in Gourmet Magazine, we'll pay you a higher base fee, and that may be like $25 for a 300-word story. And then we pay them bonuses for, did you share the story through social media outlets? So there's a Facebook bonus, a Twitter bonus, a bonus for your newsletter, a bonus for sharing it on your blog, a bonus for putting it on LinkedIn, and then their total story can add up to $50 to $75 per story, based on how much sharing they actually did. And then we have bonuses in place for the stories that were most trafficked each month. So if they had the most trafficked story in each category, then they get more money.
When you agreed to work with these commission-based salespeople, what experience were you looking for? And B, how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah.
And you did say they were only getting 25% commission only?
Yeah. In Alabama, in Birmingham, we could not recruit experienced people to work commission only, which meant that we had to go after colleges and universities, because we're like, college students are coming out of school. It is a tough job market. They can stay on their parents' health insurance for longer. They can work commission only. We went through 3 sales reps before we really got our hiring model right for it. So when you go through 3, it kind of teaches you to get a sales training program in place that's really easy to run people through. We realized after 3, we're like, we don't want to be the turnover organization, even though with Gen Ys, they're going to have 38 jobs each on average. So if you're hiring Gen Y, millennials, people in their 20s, they are going to leave it at some point. Most likely, they're going to leave your organization. So we put sales training in place, and then when we bring them in now, if they're performing, then we will actually move them up to an employee level where they're on our regular payroll and a regular salary, and they get $400 per week plus a reduced commission. We also have go-ahead bonuses in place. So I will give them a goal, and they'll get 25% if they reach that goal. If they go above and beyond that goal, then we have cash bonuses in place that they can get on top of their 25% commission. So our pay scale is pay per performance in every way, whether you're a writer or you're a sales rep. Invoices. How many people have folks who owe you money? A lot of people? What do you do about it?
Keep sending them updated invoices.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just mailing them? Do you mail them?
Sometimes mailing, sometimes emailing. I think there's some places where I need to go in and talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Part of it, so we sell a newspaper, and we don't want to lose the location, so we keep delivering the new issue and then invoicing them for the last one, and then 2 issues, and then 3 issues, and we know they're selling the papers, so we don't want to stop. And I know it'll get straightened out eventually. In some of these places, I think their businesses are just a little bit disorganized, and the person who handled the payment isn't the one who's getting the invoices, and we need to straighten that out. But yeah.
What about you?
Few of the people who owe me money are friends, and that becomes a more difficult situation. It's a little bit harder to put the hammer down on somebody. And sometimes, if you've got advertisers who just to toss their hat at you if they're not paying you, because you're earning something besides the money by having money.
We use FreshBooks to do online invoicing, and we've had some situations where people have forgotten to pay their bill, didn't get the automatic online email them, sometimes so it's set up to where the payee will enter their credit card information each time they pay us on a monthly basis.
Nice.
Those people, some of them fail to do that, come up with every excuse to the point where we call and they just give us their credit card information online. And I've accepted that and saying, look, I'll manage that and get that email invoice when I run your credit card, you'll know. And that seems to have worked for us. But each time we've had that past due money, it's always a phone call and we straighten the situation out.
Anyone else has past due money?
My wife is our sales manager now, and so she's very friendly, and she'll call people up, and she'll couch it in terms as, how did that ad work for you? You know the ad that you owe us money on? In a very kind way, not as direct as that.
Yeah.
But she'll say, can we change your ad? By the way, you know it's past due. You owe us. And that works like a charm. Because she's reaching out, she's not being demanding, and she's trying to help them.
Yeah.
And I think they appreciate her effort, and then it's, oh yeah, I've been needing it.
Yeah, I think that especially with local independent businesses, that's the perfect approach. Because if you have the blunt collections person that I used to work with at the newspaper, every newspaper has the blunt collections person. If you have them call, you really do risk losing that relationship because they tend to be heavy hitters. We don't, the only money that we have past 30 days is advertisers that we've sold on Zillow, because that's one of our products and we have a vendor relationship, and that's far more money. That's thousands of dollars per order. If it's under $995 total bill, we require prepayment, which means that we don't have money that moves over into the 30, 60, 90 day at all. So that helps our working capital tremendously. If you can do that in your market, you might want to consider it, or encouraging your reps or giving your reps a bonus to actually get prepayment on the account. So you can set some strategic goals around your collection policy that show up. You know, we want to reduce the number of accounts that we have in 60 and 90 days. In order to do that, we're going to incentivize them to go out and pick up these checks, and we're going to tighten up our credit policy too. Consistently sending out invoices on the exact same day, the exact same time, every single month will help with that kind of thing too. If you float it like 2 or 3 days, it's confusing for your advertisers because they probably have a policy in place for when they pay invoices. They may do it once per month. And if you miss it by a few days, you may be in next month's cycle. So that's a good deadline to sit down and put on paper that you're going to send out your invoices the exact same time every single month. And you're going to follow up if you haven't received a check the exact same way every single month, on the exact same day every single month. So if we haven't received payment from somebody at the 14-day point, which, you know, not an issue for us right now, but if that happened, we would automatically pick up the phone and there would automatically be a phone call. So on that particular day, our ad assistant would call anybody who was past due at all.
I was going to ask, who does it?
Yeah, we have an assistant in the office.
What if you don't, what if you don't have an assistant?
Then that would be you, wouldn't it? Or you can look for, yeah, you can look for an intern if you need help with stuff like that. But yeah, I take out the garbage too. I mean,
Would you recommend using an intern?
it depends on the maturity level of the intern. Yeah, and I would make sure that they had a script and that they were trained and that they were representing my company in the exact way that they should be. Your situation's perfect. That's what I would want to have happen with my company. And if I owed somebody a bill, that's the phone call I'd want to have too, not the sort of tough one. Any more questions or conversations around collections? Do you guys feel like you could go back and get some money by putting a policy in place for collections? And this is something that if you call your local school and get an accounting person, or even if you don't and you sit down and do it yourself, you just need to write out, you know, we want to have our invoices paid by blankety blank date, and in order for that to happen, here's the exact process that we're going to use for that, and then stick to it. Just be consistent. All right, legal stuff. How many of you have hired an attorney? Did you form your LLCs on your own? No?
I had an accountant.
Accountant?
Can you do it on your own?
Yeah. Uh-huh. You can, if you go to LegalZoom.com, you can actually do it on your own. LegalZoom? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll need articles of organization, so you might want to just Google LLC articles of organization if that's what you're going to file, and get a copy of it. But it's pretty straightforward. They have a form that you fill out. It's like $299 or something. If you go to an attorney, it'll probably be $2,500 to go through and do an LLC formation.
But you could do it for 200,
Mm-hmm.
200
Yep.
and some change with LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I could add.
Yeah.
If you go through LegalZoom to incorporate and do that, you need to be on your toes as well. I don't think it's a play of lane kind of thing that you're just done with that, because the papers have to be filed in the state attorney general's office and be filed and reviewed and things like that. LegalZoom, in our business, we've had a couple of cases where they dropped that ball and we got the notice that they were going to review our business, and we had to go back in and do that. So even though we found other than that, Mrs. Lincoln is different, but you do have to remain diligent about some of those things. Whereas maybe a local attorney would be doing that for you, so you're able to give the billable hours.
In Virginia, we use something through the state called Business One Stop. It's with the, I forget the office name, but State Corporation Commission. It's $50. We filed through the state, and they did the articles for us and mailed us our certificate. And each year we get that update. We need reading. So that made it very easy for us.
Roughly the same story in Illinois, so it's easier back.
From Virginia.
So do any of you have an attorney that you know that you can call if you've got a question?
Yes.
You do?
We get pro bono help because of our content.
Yeah. Anyone else have an attorney you know you can call? Yeah. If you don't have one, even if you don't need one right now, go ahead and interview attorneys so that should anything ever happen, you have somebody that you can pick up the phone and call. We like our attorney a whole bunch. We interviewed 15 attorneys to get to the one that we really like, and ours specializes in small business law. So if I have a question like, we're thinking about bringing on an independent contractor and there are some special circumstances around or whatever, he'll just answer questions on the phone for me and not charge me. Not all of them are like that, but most of them really are like that. If you need services on retainer, some of these small business attorneys too, at least in Birmingham, will go through and they have like $100 per month package that you can put them on retainer for. If you're doing a lot of hiring or if you need some employment documents, it might be a good idea to just consider. But at the very least, before you need an attorney, before anything like blows up, find one that you actually like so that you know that you can call them should something bad happen. How many of you have non-disclosure agreements? How many of you have employees or independent contractors or people who are exposed to sensitive information about your business? Do you have non-disclosure agreements in place?
For some, not, depends on the level of somebody's involvement. I'm not going to make everybody who's doing a little bit of work side of it.
Yeah.
I have one, two kind of contractors, reporter, editors, and no, I don't have engineers. Partially because I'm convinced he's not going to become a member.
Yeah.
I know his character.
An NDA is a helpful document to have around, and you can use it just for sort of blanket non-disclosure. So You're going to go and show someone your business plan. Do you want them to make copies of that and give it out to all their friends? So having an NDA on front of your business plan is a really good idea, and that would just include any proprietary information that someone is exposed to, that they're not going to go out and share that or put it on the internet.
You know, personally, I would say, I think that's absolutely right for, first looking for investors kind of situation. I've been on the other side with NDAs in corporate settings, and for employees, they very often are not enforceable, and they're not worth the effort that would be involved to enforce them. And so I think it tends to be counterproductive. And
Are you talking about a non-compete or an NDA?
Well, I guess I'm talking about. I'm probably more thinking about non-competes actually, but to some extent, either one of them. You know, just for a fairly casual employment situation, I'm not sure that it's worth the feeling that you're angling against somebody before you've even started.
You don't want to introduce the.
Someone with bad thoughts in their head, you know.
I work with a marketing company that recently sent out a non-disclosure, non-compete agreement to every resident, and I didn't like the feeling it gave when I got that out of the blue. You know, I can understand their reasoning behind it, but it made me think, do I want to work with them?
Was it the non-disclosure or the non-compete that got you?
I think it was all wrapped into one.
Yeah, so presentation matters, like, you know, tone of voice, you know, when you give somebody information. I'll give you an example that may cause you to think about non-competes differently. In Birmingham, we have a publication called Weld, and they're a print plus online publication. One of the founders who did not have a non-compete, who had every bit of sensitive information about what they will be doing for the next 5 years, because they had to have it planned out. They took on investment, left, and went to the Birmingham News. Suddenly, the Birmingham News strategy is changing a little bit. I mean, and it's evident. So in those kinds of situations, you know, you may look at it and say, well, I don't want it for everybody, but there may be people like your partner in business that it's really appropriate for to get some sort of non-disclosure in place. It does tend to be a little bit softer too if you put it as part of your onboarding process. When you hire somebody and you bring them on board, that these are our standard documents that we have somebody sign. And you know, if it's a crucial member of your company who could go out and damage you in any way, then it may be worth it just to have that on file for you. But definitely the non-disclosure agreement, we do that with absolutely everybody that we work with, because they may come in and we may have a confidential conversation within a meeting that started about editorial, and somebody brings something up and we don't want that information to get out. So we sort of use it as, for our company, we use it as a way of putting up a really good fence that everybody just knows that they have to abide by that rule.
And is it really, I mean, could you, let's say you had an employee that violated that non-disclosure agreement, and something showed up at another publication, started replicating, etc. You A, have to prove it, that they released that information, and then B, you're going to have to spend money to go after them, even though the information is already out there. So really what you're doing is just trying to contain it.
Yes.
Yeah. But legally.
Beautifully said. Yeah. It's a deterrent, right? That most logical people will say, they'll remember like, oh, I'm not supposed to tell anyone about that confidential way that our business operates, and I sign my name onto a document. It's kind of like when people take the pledge to not text and drive, or the pledge to do this or that. They just think about it before they do it.
You get a quick boilerplate version of it online, or you need a lawyer to draw one up for you?
Yeah, there's, with an NDA especially, that's pretty standard. So if you Google it, you can find one that you can use. That's what we did. We didn't have an attorney look through it or anything. Unless you've got something very specific that you want to have included, you can blanket that one. Non-competes, I would definitely have a lawyer look at, though, if you're going to do those.
You're talking I mean, that's
Yeah.
another one of the benefits of going through something like a LegalZoom or something like that is the document warehouse that they have. And you can get the stuff rather than you writing like a human being and then trying to lawyer it up, you know, on your second edit.
Thou shalt not disclose.
Yeah, but that way you have that at your disposal too.
Mm.
And for the nonprofits, I know
And for your independent contractors, do you have agreements with them? Did they sign a document saying that they're an independent contractor and they agree to X payment terms? Yeah, that's another one. You can look at LegalZoom for it. You can do some Google research. I would have an attorney look over something like that, me personally. But get something in place with your independent contractors, because if anybody will come up and bite you in the butt, it's the labor board. And I'll say, if you're in the Northeast, I moved from Buffalo, New York, the New York Labor Board, I'm more afraid of them than anybody, like, ever. Because if you're not following law and you have an independent contractor leave, there's no signed document, it's your word against theirs. If you're going up against the New York State Labor Board and they can write you a fine for violating the law, you're gonna have to get an attorney at the end of the day. So get independent contractor agreements in place for everybody. I'll also say, if you are bringing somebody on board as an employee and you're going to do it in that 90-day probationary period and outline everything, then send them an offer letter and have them sign it back. Just make that part of your employment package that you send out so that you have that in a file. Because if you don't have that and you hire somebody and then they come back and say, well, he told me that I would be making $50,000 and they only paid me $26,000. They owe me some money. It's your word against theirs. And at the end of the day, you will have to get an attorney. But if you have a letter that you can pull out, no, look, we both signed this on this day. This is what we agreed to. This is what you were paid.
So I've been using the same web developer for 3 years. He owns his own business. He's an LLC. He has multiple clients besides me. I should have him sign an independent contractor agreement?
Is he a vendor or is he an independent contractor?
I believe I look at him as a vendor. I
Yeah.
hired him to
Does he invoice you?
Yes.
No.
So that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I would have him sign an NDA though.
Yeah. I mean, he's wonderful. He's helped
Yeah.
me build my business. So he comes up with half the great ideas.
Nice. Insurance. How many of you have key personnel insurance? If something, we're at a stage at my business right now that I'm the only non-Gen Y person working for my company. Everybody else is Gen Y, they're out of college. And it was because we bootstrapped the way that we build our business. We needed to hire Gen Y, and now we've brought them along and whatnot, but I'm kind of crucial. If something happened, then that would be bad right now. We're getting to a point that it wouldn't be bad. I can be away for 2 or 3 days, but I bought key personnel insurance. And I did it so that should something happen to me, the business just doesn't go away entirely. So if I got hit by a bus, then this insurance policy would kick in that actually pays out to my business. So my business could rehire someone with my skill set at that level. So the policy will take care of somebody that needs to make more money. Makes sense? Key personnel insurance. If you've got a spouse that you're in partnership with, if you've got a partner, key personnel insurance is something really good to consider, and it's not that expensive at all. I think I pay $72 per month for my policy, but it's a $500,000 policy. Yes. I'm going to show up missing. And you don't need this on everybody in your company, just your people that if they left, it could seriously do some damage to your business. And you may have those people already. Do you guys have anybody that you rely on so heavily that if something happened to them, they were hit by a bus, that it would just completely change your business? Huh?
Probably us.
Yeah. So get it on yourself like I did. Yeah. So that your business could continue. All right. So what do you guys want to talk about besides business plan? We wanted to go back to that, right? What did y'all want to talk about? Is there anything that you wanted to learn when you came in here today that we didn't talk about?
How about exit strategy?
Oh, that's a good one. That's Rusty's favorite. Who has an exit strategy? Who has an exit strategy?
I want to know why you have to have an exit strategy. What if I want to write about food until I die? I don't understand why you have to have an exit strategy.
Okay, so you're then.
I sold one business last year,
Yeah.
and I didn't have an exit strategy with that one. It just luckily came out of the blue that I had a buyer for it. But you know, with my whole process with this newspaper that tried to buy Jersey Bites over the summer, there was no way I was selling Jersey Bites. Maybe if it had been, you know, multiple millions of dollars, but to me it's like cutting off my right arm right now. I just get so much joy out of it, and it's just such a part of me that I don't think that way. But so explain to me why it's important to have an exit strategy.
Well, an exit strategy doesn't mean that you
Well, have to or want to.
Well, then you are building a business to sell it next year. It's just you are investing your life's work into this right now.
Right.
And at some point, that should be worth something. It shouldn't just be what you do and earn an income stream while you're doing it. You should end up, it's an investment that you are making.
Okay.
And, you know, whatever you want to be able to get out of that investment. In my case, having a nonprofit, you know, I'm building something that is for everybody. So I really don't have an exit strategy that is, I get what I get out of it, that, you know, like get paid something out of it.
Right.
And if you're actually, you know, if you're a for-profit business, that's an investment. It's an investment in all your time and work.
So when you pass away, what happens to your business?
I have 2 children that don't show much interest in it, but I would like, you know, I would like to see them. They're young yet. I think it could be somewhere down the line, maybe one of my children might want to do.
That's part of an exit strategy. And did you do your articles of organization when you formed your LLC? No? To form an LLC legally, you're supposed to have articles of organization that go with it. And what those articles of organization say is, should something happen to me, then for me, I talked to my husband. He was like, I got zero interest in this business, like at all. So we already designated, you know, this is our attorney's name, who would go find a fair market value for the product. In the meantime, here's the person who, in the role, who would actually be running the company until a suitable buyer was found, and then here's how the revenue would be split after that. So it's sort of, it's not just, hey, you know, do you ever want to leave? It's, you know, hey, we're all going to die at some point. So when that happens, are your wishes carried out for your company? It's an emotional process.
My attorney is very thorough, and I just don't remember her talking about that part of the whole.
About articles of organization?
Yeah.
Yeah, legally you are required to file. Did you go through a process where you talked about with her, what do you want to do if anything ever happens to you? What happens to the business?
You know, it was 5 years ago. I don't remember that process.
Do any of you remember it who have LLCs? Did you file articles of organization?
I had my
Remember?
accountant do it. And I haven't read it for 4 years.
Do you have them? Yeah. Anyone else have them? No? Yeah.
Couldn't tell you what they said.
Yeah. And so your articles of organization would be filed where your business license is filed, and that's legally required. So I'm filed in Jefferson County, Alabama, so mine have a Jefferson County, Alabama stamp on them that's been notarized. So the government knows what should happen. It's sort of like filing a will, almost, to a degree, but it is required. So if your accountant didn't file them for you, go back and take a look at whatever paperwork was turned in for your LLC, because it's legal. You have to have that with it too. So it may be that you've got a piece missing that you need to go back and take care of.
And while the session, after this starts on the note of the exit strategy, I'll leave here because we're not here to be our experts in anything. I use the exit strategy and certainly use it as super can as a very confrontational way to get people to see that there's a difference between being a business and running a business. And if you see yourself as being a business, you're never going to get in front of it. And you're just going to consume everything you have. But if you are a business, then you start thinking in terms of how do I recoup these sunk costs? How do I then set it up so it's going to survive my debt and be a service? How do I set it up that maybe I want to merge with another company, maybe I want to be acquired by another company, but maintain what I'm doing. But just to go through all of those motions, those mental motions, those intellectual motions, because the doing so, as we found, every instance I've done that with, is so confrontational to your right brain that you can then start filling some spreadsheets. You know, then you're like, oh my God, exit, oh. Yes, okay, and then you can start putting it together. And that's why you start thinking in terms of running a business rather than being a business. You really turn that first corner, that the guy who opens up a pitch and pool stores, turn it just right before he opens up a pitch and pool store. We're coming at it from the flip side. You started doing this, now it's becoming a business.
Yeah.
Now you need to come back to it. And sometimes the best way to do that is to just arrest yourself to do it. Even if you're really right about to do the rest of your life.
Anyone else have an exit plan you're willing to share?
Sure, everyone has a price, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's it?
Yeah.
Money.
Yeah.
Money or continue as a family business.
Mm-hmm. So what your dollar amount, I'm just going to say it's like $5 million because you look like big money.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if your dollar amount was $5 million, do you think you could go through and build a business plan that would show how you could get to a worth of $5 million?
Of course. If I had an offer, I would drop everything and maybe do all I could to close that, convince that buyer. And, I have QuickBooks. I do QuickBooks. I don't do monthly reconciliation, which I should, but it's quarterly. I have to do quarterly taxes, so.
Yeah, has anybody else worked back that way? To Eleanor's point when she was doing the sales training, that she does that with her reps. What do you want to make? Have any of you worked back through the value of a $5 million business and then what you would actually need to do to have a business worth that much?
I'm not so focused on the value of the business because we're a nonprofit, but when we were doing our initial business planning, we had 30 pages of spreadsheets about what it would take to get to our revenue goal. So, 2 months worth of work, just on those spreadsheets, and we're digging way down into that. And, here's staffing costs, and not just a number of staffing costs, but here's somebody being paid this much. That kind of needs to.
Anything else y'all want to talk about?
What about the struggles of the single sole proprietorship? What would you suggest? My suggestion is I've been trying to find a partner of any sort, I don't care. Could be a cat, I don't know. To help me. Because it feels really, and I've worked with boards, like I've created an advisory board, and I've done a lot of different things, and none of them seem to really hold.
Because you haven't met anybody that you've liked? Is that it?
No, I think maybe because I didn't know what I was doing. But in general, I pivoted a number of times. So in general, for sole proprietors, if they wanted to get started and create a site, what would you suggest to them?
Well, I would start with a business plan for sure that had a roadmap for, over, the next year and then 2 years and 3 years, here's what needs to happen. But I think I would break out, here are all the responsibilities I have right now, here's where we're at right now, here is as far as we can get with one person doing this, and break it out and find out what kind of person do you want to bring on board.
Right.
Do you want a sales director? Do you want an editorial person?
I think, I don't know, has anyone else here started off alone?
Yeah.
So,
I was
how
alone.
do you find that experience of working alone? Is it good for you? Or do you feel isolated sometimes? Or?
I worked alone and I've worked with sales reps that didn't work out and I spent a ton of money on them. So now I'm broken, kind of very jaded to the whole experience, and realize that I actually do a better job in relating what we're about to advertisers than I think my advertising reps were able to do, and that was probably my fault that I didn't train them. And so if you do bring anybody on, it really is up to you to mold them into what you want them to be. Like I was looking at them as the saviors that were going to come down from the heavens and making all kinds of money. And you really have to keep that responsibility, I think, too. It puts on more responsibility in some ways. One of my outlets is that I have a lot of volunteer writers. So my writers are like my family, and we have our little get-togethers, and we communicate daily through Google Groups, which just keeps us all on top of what's going on in the state, and so I don't feel that isolated.
So you have a community of reporters.
Yeah.
But in terms of your business, it sounds like you've learned a lot from just
A lot the hard way.
Yeah.
What we found, because I came to the newsroom, and I at first loved not having to do anywhere at a certain point in time, and that's something a little vicariously from there. But I initially missed the interaction that we had in the newsroom, how the news was gone. From a business perspective, I know now that no one can sell my business better than I can sell my business. And it's just a hard time. I, like you, have brought on people who are on a commission basis, with folks that this is the silver bullet, this is the $1 million solution, and it's it's a lot of people motivated, it's a lot of people do the sales training, which is very impressive. You guys do it for me. So that's the lesson.
So owning your business, and part of owning your business sounds to me like even if you're a sole proprietor and you have an idea, is fleshing it out, putting it down, and then talking to people. And
Yeah.
see if there's someone who complements you.
And figuring out what kind of culture you want to have in your organization too. Like the reason why we have 2 people working for us now that were offered jobs with the Birmingham News that have really, I won't say stable now because Advance is going through all that, but seemingly on space, a startup or an established company, they would have had an easier time there to begin with, but they came to work with us because we offered flexible hours. You get a free veggie box every single week because fresh local vegetables are important to us. They get a free gym membership. We just added tons of, all their favorite foods are always in the refrigerator to encourage them to come into the office, especially for independent contractors. So we mapped that out, or I mapped that out before we brought our first person on board. And I would even say if you're going to test somebody else out as a partner, or if you're going to bring somebody on board part-time temporarily, if you do that stuff at the beginning, it will save you a world of hurt of going through hires later. And that's where you really make your company more valuable, and you get better people too if they want to come work with you for reasons beyond just the job itself, because they feel valued or accepted or motivated or whatnot. They're always going to do a better job then. But I would map it out, and I would really examine why do you want somebody, because it does change. Some people work better as sole performers. They really do, and they don't necessarily want to lead a team of people or grow in that kind of way, because it's a different job.
Right.
Because when I started out, I was writing and I was selling ads, and now I manage people. I don't do the other stuff.
And you like the management part.
Yeah, I like it, but I went through 2 months or so where I didn't like it very much. because then I'm constantly worried. I'm like, well, I could sell better than they can, or I can write better than they can. Like, now I can't, but we went through 2 months that I could.
What is that called? Founders?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's time. Time to wrap up. All right, cool. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Break time.